Download Glovo, order food, groceries, or anything you want and track it until it arrives in minutes.
You've got a great idea. GoDaddy has the perfect domain name to go with it. It only takes a few minutes to
Well, before we get going, I just kind of wanted to remind everybody that there is a media order that has been issued on this case. And for some of the media and the individuals who've been here for the last couple of weeks, I'm sure are familiar with it. But I know there's a constant people coming in and out. So I just want to remind everyone that there is a specific media order that's been issued on this case. And everybody is presumed to have reviewed it and agreed to it. So if there are any violations or problems with that, we'll have to deal with it. But I just kind of wanted to remind everybody, especially people who may have just come into the courtroom recently. So if you have any questions about what that order is, you can speak to any of the court officers. They have a copy of it. We can get a copy of it to everybody who needs to see it and review it. All right, and with that, what we'll do is we're going to go, the defendant, had filed a motion for addition to the witness list, to add to the witness list regarding Ms. Thorndike. So what I'm going to do first, I'll hear from the defendant, then I'll hear from the Commonwealth.
Thank you.
Mr. Reddington.
Thank you. Your Honor, basically, as the motion speaks for itself, there is a woman, her name is Emily Thorndike, who's a LACSW here in Massachusetts. She owns and is an independent operator of her own clinical social work establishment called Wise Mind Therapy. Your Honor has her resume. She graduated from Dover Sherburne High School, received a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology from Hartwick College, master's degree from BC, 2019, is licensed in Massachusetts. And interestingly enough, she did work at the McLean Hospital in the very short-term unit that the doctor was testifying that Lindsay was in for 5 days in January of 22 into 23. She worked for 5 years as a mental health specialist from May of 2014 to May of 2019. She was a clinical social worker manager of that unit from 2019-2021. So she's basically got about 7 years and 7 months of experience working in that unit for a majority of that period of time, full-time employee, and then for 1 year as a supervisor. She left, as the court is aware from the motion. I vetted her out. I obviously would be concerned if there's any so-called axe to grind, if you will, any lawsuits pending. Were you fired? Did you have any difficulties? Any claims for harassment, hostile workplace? Absolutely nothing. She has friends that are still employees that still work at McLean. And I do not know this woman. I have literally never met her. Her involvement in this case came about after examination that McLean is some kind of a five-star institution where the doctors, the psychiatrists, the psychotherapists, the counselors were all banging into each other in the hallway trying to interview Ms. Clancy, who was just blithely refusing care and treatment, which is not the case. Patrick testified as to his observations. The court is aware that Patrick's testimony clearly in all fours landed on the fact that it was clear to him that there was no staff that was available other than kids behind plexiglass on their cell phones. She colored. She took walks. There was no therapy. She didn't speak to any therapist. Her practice is as far from the truth as can be possible, in my opinion. But it doesn't matter what my opinion is. I could cross-examine somebody till the cows come home. It doesn't matter. I'm sure. I hardly know what TikTok is, but I received an email from one of the very, very active people in the community of TikTok saying, look, you got to check this video out. So I did. This is about a week ago, maybe longer now. When I saw her video saying that she could not stand for, and I quote, the lies and the misrepresentations from that witness stand about McLean Hospital, I then said to my private investigator, Bob Jones, I said, Bob, I can't find this woman because she had a pseudonym name or whatever. He went, we wrote, he called her, left messages. She never got back to us for like 3 days. He went to her house. He sat out in front of her driveway. She came home from work. They interacted. He waved, didn't want to scare her. And she said, I thought, and oh, by the way, I believe that my wife had written her a letter as well because she's a nurse and was trying to reach out to her to have her get in touch with me, to no response. She then tells Bob, I thought you guys were all AI. I didn't know that you were real. I thought it was spam. He then gave me her number. I spoke to her. She told me exactly what I put in the affidavit or in the motion. And she is available, ready, willing, and able to testify to an employee's observations over 7 years, including as a supervisor, as to what woeful environment McLean Hospital offers, especially on holidays such as major holidays like New Year's, which is fine. We all enjoy New Year's. But nevertheless, New Year's, the day after, that weekend, Monday, nobody was there. And I think it's important to rebut the inference that was created through the examination by the DA.
All right, Mr. Brady, let me ask you this, and I'm going to ask the Commonwealth kind of the same thing. What's the relevance? What's the argument for the relevance of what McLean's was, at least because she wasn't there for about a year, if I looked at the motion. Is that correct? No, that's all right.
Yeah, that's true. She left. She has her own business now, and she left, but it was just a year.
Yeah.
There's no change in the circumstances from Lindsay going into that hospital on New Year's of 2022 to 23, and this woman's work experience where she left a year before. And I agree with you. This would have been a non-issue were it not for the flavor of the government's repeated argument that she was a person who was spurning health care, didn't want health care, had the opportunity, and she walked away from the opportunity, which, as I say, is as far from the truth as possible. So I think it is now, because of their questioning, squarely before the jury, to leave that impression. And the woman that was the doctor from McLean was just a pleasure. She was just a lovely, lovely woman and testified as best she could on the case. But they're left with the impression that McLean is this wonderful place that she just did not have any interest in utilizing what was available to her. That was not available to her. And she's testifying to custom, practice and her observations over 7.5 years.
Is there another alternative to get there? Someone who actually works there or worked there during this time period? It's the time period that
A year?
one of the things that, well, yeah, but things can change in a year, you know?
I don't think so at McLean.
I don't know so. I guess that's the question. I don't know so. That would be, that's one of the things I may have to wrestle with, but that's kind of what I was asking, whether or not there is, or I understand the argument.
Okay.
And I understand the argument regarding relevance. But if we're talking about staffing or the availability of programs and how that work, this witness is a gap there. I guess that's all. I'm wondering if there's another way to get there.
So, you know, the realities of trial practice, if you're the government, you send summonses, you have people come to your office, you're interviewing witnesses. If you're the defense, they run for the hills. For example, one motion I'm bringing with you is merely looking for pediatric records that I have had to have Bob Jones go and try to get them, HIPAA forms, everything, and they're avoiding us horribly. And I'm going to have a contempt hearing request very shortly. But the point I'm getting at is, if they want to reach out to McLean, I'm sure that McLean administration would bend over backwards to give them every record that they would need as to how many employees they had, what their work records were, their doctors, their counselors, all available. I know I can't get it. So I'm suggesting to Your Honor that this is an opportunity for a person who worked there for all those years, who does not have any dog in the fight, to testify to what her observations were clearly within her time frame. She left a year before Lindsay went in there on New Year's. So I certainly agree with that. Cross-examination, they could get records if they wish, but I think it is relevant. I think it's material, and I think it has to be used to rebut the inference that was raised.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Yeah, Commonwealth?
Your Honor, the Commonwealth would object to the witness, the late disclosed witness, in addition to the obvious Rule 14 issues, the fact that we didn't have notice of this individual, there's been no discovery other than what's contained in the affidavit, and what we could identify from this woman's TikTok video. There's no report from the investigator who, admittedly, by counsel, has spoken to this witness, this individual. Aside from that, we have a number of other issues with this witness. One is, this isn't somebody that's proposed to be an expert, so they're not relieved, they wouldn't be relieved of a sequestration order. But this woman's TikTok, admittedly, she's been following the trial. She goes on for several minutes in a very long TikTok video where she identifies what she thinks are lies based on her observations of Patrick Clancy's testimony. We have no idea what her thoughts are or what her comments are on the rest of the trial that we assume she's watched based on her comments in this particular video. That she outlines in this video her experiences at McLean and her observations and how they are different from what was portrayed in that particular witness's testimony. But in the course of this trial, we not only have that particular witness's testimony, we have records from McLean, and the records speak for themselves about what she was offered, what she did, what she declined, what the contact was with each and every person who wrote a note in that record. But this witness admittedly wasn't there, had no contact, has no knowledge of the case in of itself. And in this case, Your Honor, we deal with facts. We're presenting facts to the jury. We're not presenting somebody's opinion about what kind of care the defendant got during her stay at McLean. That's not what this trial is about. That's not what it should be about. And if it wants to play out in the court of public opinion, that's fine, but not inside the walls of these courtroom. So this person who said that she cares about Lindsay in this video, whether other people do or don't, this person who said that the prosecution of this case is an abomination, this person who said that the health profession needs to be held responsible for their care of the defendant, that's not a witness that presents facts to this jury. And I would also agree that there is a problem with what relevant testimony that she could give. There is no indication that what her experiences were in those 7 years up until December of 2021 are exactly the same as they would have been when the defendant was at that short-term unit at McLean. And the defense had the opportunity to ask that of Dr. Goodhart, and he didn't. So there is...
Wait a minute. I think she said, I don't know what the staffing was. Didn't she say, I don't know how many people were on? I don't know if it was a skeleton crew?
She said on that particular weekend she didn't know what the staffing was.
Well, that's
but she wasn't asked
That's the only weekend we're talking about.
Right, but now he wants to make this an issue about the practices and the common practice of the hospital, but that was not a question that was asked of her, nor would Your Honor necessarily have permitted it where he was trying to tailor the testimony to the exchanges with the defendant. So to then have the witness available to answer those questions that was at the facility during that time period, and then not take that opportunity and offer this subsequent witness and call it a rebuttal witness, it's not a fair line of examination. It's not a fair line of rebuttal where she wasn't there during the time period. So we would object for all of those reasons.
I mean, just so everybody knows where I'm going, I can't imagine that that witness would be allowed to give her, in a sense, review of McLean's. If it's 5-star and she may say it's 2-star, this is not TripAdvisor. I wouldn't allow that.
And no one.
But the question seems to be, for me, a closer call about what the standard staffing and programs may be available on a holiday weekend. Because the Commonwealth's witness said, I don't know that. And that seems to be something that maybe the parties could come to an agreement about establishing, either, this holiday we have don't. To me, that's where the battle on this motion is. I do understand the Commonwealth's objections regarding allowing people who watch the trial to then say, I disagree with it, and I want to testify about what I disagree with. That's troubling, but I'm talking about the facts on this thing. And that's if it was anything other than those kind of facts, and this witness had not worked there, I'm not sure we'd even be having this hearing.
And I would suggest that counsel indicated that in trial practice that people are reluctant to give information to the defense. But there are avenues, procedural avenues that he could pursue to get that information involving the court or involving subpoenas, in which there's been no indication that he's actually tried to do. And again, I would suggest to the court that we have the McLean records from that time period in evidence, and they are the best evidence of the contact that people there, staff that were there that day, had, or those 4 days, had with the defendant on that day. So from the perspective of if there's missing information, there are avenues he could pursue if he wants to rebut it. I would suggest that this person's testimony is not relevant because they weren't there. And I would agree that the better option if defense wants to present this as a rebuttal would be from somebody that was there, but doesn't have that. And so for those reasons, this motion should be denied.
And you don't have to commit to this at all, but it seems to me that it would be a very simple solution to get the staffing records or somebody at McLean's who can testify to this. What was the program availability on the mid-December weekend, if you went in there, as opposed to the weekend of New Year's? And it may be no different whatsoever, and that kind of eliminates the argument. So I think probably the best way to deal with this is to maybe have a voir dire of this witness in regards to what. So then the record's clear too, but it also allows the parties to consider while we're setting this up, maybe there's another way to do it, a lesser alternative, so to speak, that would reduce the prejudice to both parties. So
again, I don't know how a voir dire of this particular witness, who clearly wasn't there and didn't have contact with the facility during that time period, would answer Your Honor's questions. But I do agree.
Maybe we can find out. I can ask the questions, and we could see. I understand the problem that I kind of had as the case was going. The individual that was probably, you would anticipate, could talk about the staffing the difference of a holiday weekend and a non-holiday weekend, said she wasn't aware of that. So,
Well, I don't know that she said she wasn't aware of the difference. She said she wasn't aware of who was there on that weekend because she wasn't working that weekend. So I think there's a slight distinction in that. But again, the witness was available. Counsel could have crossed her on that, subject to any sort of objection, and we could have addressed it at that time when the witness was on the stand. But again, that witness is under summons, and if counsel wants to recall her, he can. There are avenues that he could pursue if he wants to pursue this line of rebuttal that's short of calling this particular witness that's been proposed, is the point that the Commonwealth wishes to express.
So I'm going to take this under advisement. I want to review it. But I'm inclined, just so everybody can kind of maybe make some idea where we may go with this, I'm inclined to have a voir dire with this witness or some other witness. So maybe the defendant can get somebody who hasn't watched the trial, because I do understand there's an issue regarding sequestration, but that may be a function of a trial like this that's being broadcast. How do we guard against that? But that's not going to affect really the relevance, the prejudice, the determinations I have to make, under all the rules, 401, 403, all of those considerations that I have to make. So I'm inclined to do that unless the parties can think of I won't say better alternative, that's not fair to this witness, a different alternative that might address
I don't think
everybody.
we're going to be able to agree on anything, Judge, so it would really be up to
I know, but
the referee to make a decision.
Right. What I'm trying to do is put that out there. If the parties can agree, I think the three of you know me. I don't have a problem making a decision. I really don't. But I just kind of wanted to give everybody that opportunity to maybe craft a solution. And if I have to do it, that's kind of what I'm saying by saying I'm taking under advisement. So I'll let the parties know.
Can I just ask,
Sure.
Your Honor, if you're reviewing this, taking under advisement, that you do look in more detail at those records, the McLean Hospital records,
Sure,
and
yeah.
current evidence, so that Your Honor can see the extent of the contact, the extent of the notes of people who actually dealt with her. Because again, that is the issue. That is the factual issue here, is the contact that she actually had,
Yeah.
not what maybe she wasn't offered at other points, but what she had while she was there. So I ask that you just review.
All right. I'll review that. I'll review my notes regarding the doctor who testified from McLean's, and then we can deal with this. This would be a witness that would be called later in the trial anyway, so it'll give me a chance to do that, review that, get a decision to the three of you, and then we can, depending what happens, either schedule a voir dire or go from there. All right? But all right.
one's entering.
Hey, all persons having anything to do before the Honorable William Sullivan, Justice of the Superior Court, now sitting in Plymouth, within and for the Commonwealth. Draw near, give your attendance, and you shall be heard. God save the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This court is now in session. Please be seated.
Good morning, Your Honor. May I proceed?
Yes, please.
Your Honor, before the court today, we have the continuation of the jury trial in the matter of Commonwealth versus Lindsay Clancy. Ms. Clancy is present. She is represented by Attorney Kevin Reddington. The Commonwealth is represented by Assistant District Attorney Jennifer Sprague and Assistant District Attorney Shannon Buckingham.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Thanks for your patience. I told you we got a little late start, but I appreciate you waiting for us. And so what I'm going to do is going to go through those questions. And then at that point, we'll talk a little bit about the schedule, and then we'll get right back into the trial. So first question, as you all know by this point, has any member of the jury read, seen, heard, or overheard anything from any source about any aspect of this case that would affect your ability to be a fair and impartial juror? All right. Second question is there any other serious matter or concern bearing on your service as a juror in this case that anybody needs to bring to my attention? Again, thank you for following those instructions. And then in regards to today's schedule, I'll probably be wrong again, but the best aspect, I think it'll probably be similar to yesterday, okay? So we'll return to the case, we'll take a break, hopefully around 11, take a break from 1 to 2, and then we'll go into the afternoon depending on how the case testimony goes. And then at the end of the day, I'll try to remember, bring counsel over here. We'll talk about kind of where we are on the timeline of the case, where we are kind of scheduled for the week and going forward. So I'll try and give you that, hopefully, this afternoon before I send you home. All right. So with that, we're going to return. There was a witness. Ms. Paul was on the stand. The Commonwealth had finished their direct examination, and we're about to begin cross-examination of that witness. So I would ask the witness if the witness could retake the stand, please.
Good morning. Good morning. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony in the evidence you
All right, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, Mr. Reddington.
Thank you, Judge. Morning, Nurse Paul.
Good morning.
And if I understand, you now live and perhaps work in New Hampshire, is that right?
That's correct.
And are you still doing the same type of work that you were doing with the social health?
Yes, I am.
Excellent. Very good. You obviously are a very, very dedicated person to this field, if you will, and helping people that are pregnant women after they had birth and during that postpartum period, right?
Correct.
You worked with Lindsay, and the reason you were involved with Lindsay is because, if I understand it correctly, her mother-in-law, Patrick's mother, Sue, worked with a friend of yours.
Correct.
So basically, Sue asked her friend if she could reach out and have you kind of step in and help out.
That's correct.
And that's what you did.
Yes.
And you stepped up and you treated this woman, obviously, with care and professionalism.
Objection.
Exhibit 222.
And in the course of your treatment of Lindsay, actually, you went so far as to give you a cell phone, if I'm correct. Is that right?
She did have my cell phone because I called her on my day off, yes, sir.
Okay. I don't have any other questions, Judge. Thank you very much for your care.
All right. Counsel, anything further?
No, thank you.
All right. Thank you. You may step down.
Thank you.
The Commonwealth would call Rebecca Gelada as its next witness, please.
Good morning, ma'am. Stop right there and raise your right hand to the clerk, please.
Good morning. Do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're giving is true? Yeah, the chair. Thank you, ma'am. You may have a seat.
Watch your step, please.
Hey, good morning. I'm going to ask you to keep your voice up and speak into that microphone, all right?
Okay, thank you, Your Honor.
Yes. Attorney Bucky, please.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could you please tell the jurors your first and last name?
Rebecca Gelada.
And how do you spell your last name for the record?
Jollota.
And what do you do for work?
I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner.
And what kind of training and education did you do in order to become a psychiatric nurse practitioner?
Thank you. I have my bachelor's degree from the University of Connecticut in Allied Health Sciences. I then went on to get my master's actually in counseling psychology in 2013 from William James College in Newton. I worked in the mental health field as a clinician in various positions for a time. Then I went back to school. I've been an RN in Massachusetts since 2017. I got my MSN in 2019, at which time I became a licensed and credentialed psychiatric nurse practitioner.
And where is that? Here in Massachusetts?
Yes.
Are you licensed anywhere else?
No.
Okay. And so can you tell us a little bit about your work history?
Sure. I have worked in as a detox nurse at McLean. I have worked as a therapist in outpatient clinicians prior to becoming a nurse. I have worked in DMH respite facilities, and now I'm a nurse practitioner.
And when you were a therapist doing outpatient therapist, was that something you were doing on your own as a social worker, or were you associated with a practice?
It was part of my training after I got my master's in counseling in 2013. So I had a panel of patients, but I was under the supervision of a licensed provider. It was up towards getting my licensure.
And where do you currently work?
South Shore Health.
And how long have you worked for South Shore Health?
Since 2021.
And how did you come to work at South Shore Health? What was the role that you started?
I had been working sort of in general practice as a psychiatric nurse practitioner, but I was interested in working in women's mental health specifically. And at that point, I was getting training to become more specialized in it. And when a job opportunity became available, I applied for it.
And what kind of training is that you were doing to be more specialized in women's health?
So Postpartum Support International is the certifying body. so that somebody can become certified in perinatal mental health. I did the 2-day, well, actually it was a 2-day training plus a 3rd day specifically for the psychopharmacology track of it. And then I took a examination and passed the examination.
And so are you certified by the Postpartum Support International?
I am.
Now, as far as the South Shore Perinatal Behavioral Health Clinic, how did you become affiliated with that?
That was the job I applied to in 2021.
Okay. And so when you came to the clinic, who was running the clinic or who was the director?
Julie Paul.
And as far as the clinic itself, what is the clinic's, what's the patient base, or who does the clinic service?
So we specialize in working with women who are pregnant and postpartum up to 2 years after the birth of their most recent baby. We offer medication management. We have a clinician on staff to do counseling. We have a few nurses that work in our program. We work with moms for any range of psychiatric disorders, including addiction.
And when we talk about the range of psychiatric disorders in women who are postpartum, what are we talking about?
Postpartum depression, anxiety, postpartum psychosis, bipolar disorder, panic disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder.
And so you mentioned postpartum psychosis. Have you yourself had the experience of treating women with postpartum psychosis?
I have, yes.
And how many patients approximately over the course of the last 5 years?
Approximately 5.
And how about postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety?
Hundreds.
And in the range of services that the clinic offers and the work that you do you oftentimes collaborate with other community providers to offer additional referrals or services to patients if they need it?
We do.
And how about when somebody appears before you and you believe they need a higher level of care than what you can offer? Do you have relationships with hospitalization programs, or are you able to make referrals to for people for those services?
Yes.
Is that pretty common practice?
Yes.
And you mentioned that one of the services or one of the things offered to patients at the clinic is medication management.
Yes.
Is that a big part of what you do as a psychiatric nurse practitioner?
It is.
And what kind of training do you receive in order to be a prescriber?
So in order to be a prescriber, it's part of my master's in nursing. So you take courses like in advanced pharmacology, advanced health assessment, pathophysiology. It's part of the coursework of my degree. And then you actually have to take a certification exam, and you have to pass the exam. You have to go on and get a DEA license, a Massachusetts controlled substance license. You have to go on and get your advanced practice registered nursing license. So it's education and certification and licensure.
And so you've done the education, you did the certification, and do you have all the licensures that you just described here in Massachusetts?
I do.
And you also mentioned part of the services of working with social workers in the clinic. And what do the social workers do?
They provide short-term counseling to patients, again, because we specialize in up to 2 years postpartum. They could be available to provide counseling during that phase.
And traditionally, postpartum period is a year after birth, right?
Correct.
So why does the clinic offer support for women up to 2 years?
We do acknowledge that while the highest risk period is the first 3 months postpartum, some women can struggle later on in the first year. They may have symptoms that emerge 9-10 months in, so we want to really be able to cover them and treat them if that happens and get them stable.
And does it sometimes take some time to get a person stable?
Absolutely.
And would that be why the program or your program goes up to 2 years?
Yes.
I want to draw your attention to a particular patient, Lindsay Clancy. You're familiar with that patient?
I am.
And how did you become involved with the care of Lindsay Clancy?
I became involved. She had initially seen Julie, and Julie was going to be leaving the clinic in December, and she wanted somebody to take care of Lindsay, again, longer term, since she would be leaving.
And at that time in 2022, when Julie was leaving, how many psychiatric nurse practitioners were at the clinic?
3.
And that includes Julie?
Yes.
And so who was the other nurse practitioner?
Andrea Warden.
Staying on top of the core concepts of sustainable investing can add value to your clients, your team, and your organization. Confidently communicate with stakeholders, build technical fluency in assessing climate-related risks and opportunities, and learn how sustainability factors affect investment performance. Start today to gain the insights and skills you need wherever you are on your sustainable investing journey. CFA Institute. Set the standard.
Assessments in person because new motherhood is very busy. There's a lot going on. We would rather see you than not. And so sometimes it is just easier to log on to a screen. Sometimes if we feel like someone would benefit from that face-to-face assessment, we'll say, please book your next appointment in person. And I know I did see Lindsay in person on at least one occasion, but my first was virtual.
And as far as kind of that choice about whether a patient appears virtual or in person, is part of the calculus the patient's choice, what they want to have happen.
Yeah.
And if there were circumstances where you believed or insisted that an in-person visit was required, would you articulate that to the patient?
Yes.
And then have them scheduled for an in-person?
Correct.
And as far as your first contact with Lindsay Clancy, were you aware that Julie Paul had done that initial intake with her in person?
I was.
And you had the chance to speak with Julie and to also review the records prior to meeting with her?
Correct.
And so were you aware that the day before, on November 28th, that Julie had some contact with Lindsay Clancy?
I was.
And that there was some phone interaction and there had been some messages sent to the clinic prior to you scheduling the meeting with her?
Correct, yes.
So would you agree that there was an issue that needed to be discussed and that led you to have this appointment with her prior to Julie actually leaving the program?
Yes.
When you met with Ms. Clancy, did you go through kind of a history of her presentation or present illness and kind of things that had occurred in the past?
I did.
And did you do kind of a nuts and bolts start to finish, or did you rely on some of the previous information she had disclosed?
I relied on some of the previous information she had disclosed. Things like where she grew up, where she went to school, past clinical history, medication trials.
And you were aware that in the history she presented to the clinic that she had previously been on some medications from another provider?
Correct, yes.
And that she started with Zoloft and Ativan and Benadryl?
Yes.
And that at some point she had visited the South Shore Hospital emergency room?
I believe it was November 16th.
And as a clinic that's associated with the South Shore Health System, do you have access to those records to review
I do.
when you're dealing with a patient?
I do, yeah.
And so you're aware that when she went to the ER on November 16th, that they prescribed her trazodone.
I am.
And that she was reporting significant sleep issues at that time.
I was aware.
And then as far as the course of treatment at the clinic, were you able to review her course of treatment with Julie?
I was.
And fair to say that had been very recent, correct?
Very recent, yes.
Her first contact with the clinic was actually November 20th, correct?
Correct.
So you were aware that Julie had originally prescribed Prozac and had already changed the medication plan.
Yeah.
Be reporting to you as the issues.
Would I be able to refer to my note, Your Honor?
Sure,
I'll
you
ju-
can.
I know most of it by memory, but just. So she had been taking mirtazapine, Remeron, at that point for 4 nights. So I believe she started it on November 25th. I was then seeing her on November 29th. She wasn't yet appreciating much difference for mood, anxiety, or insomnia. She would say, you know, I'm able to fall asleep for 2 hours, then I'm up for 3 hours in the middle of the night. And finding herself like in those 3 hours needing to take an Ativan to help her fall back asleep.
Now, when she said not appreciating much difference after taking it for 4 nights, in your training experience, is that something that you would normally see with that type of medication?
Yes, I wasn't surprised by that.
And for something like mirtazapine, or what's referred to as Remeron, right?
Remeron, yeah.
What class of drug is that?
It is a noradrenergic specific serotonin antidepressant. So it's slightly different than an SSRI. It does work on serotonin. It also works on the noradrenergic part is alpha receptors, which is what our body, those are the receptors that our body responds to adrenaline. So it should help kind of calm you down. And it also works on histamine receptors, which is why it can make people sleepy.
So for Remeron, the fact that it has a calming effect on somebody with anxiety, it's sometimes a good fit, right?
Correct, yeah.
And for somebody who might be complaining of sleep issues, it also has that secondary component that could help.
Yeah, it is a good choice for somebody who's having depression with prominent anxiety, insomnia, decreased appetite, because it can also increase appetite, which sometimes we want to happen.
And based on your review of her course of treatment with the clinic, those were issues that had arisen, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had noticed she had lost weight when she had gone to her PCP on October 20th. I believe she weighed like 130 pounds, with like decreased appetite. So that was part of the clinical picture. And of course, not sleeping and very anxious.
Okay, and so with a medication like Remeron or mirtazapine, does it take time to work or to see results?
Yes.
And typically, what's the time frame for that drug?
I usually tell patients 4 to 6 weeks at a given dose is really going to give us a good idea of what that dose is going to do. You may start to see improvements in the first 2 weeks, but full clinical benefit can take a month, sometimes 8 weeks even.
And you were aware prior to her coming to this follow-up appointment with you that she had been reporting after taking the Remeron feeling disoriented, forgetful, not feeling connected to the body, and anxious about whether she would actually sleep.
Correct.
And so were you aware that on November 28th that one of the nurses actually advised her to increase the Remeron?
I was.
And in addition to the medication, there was also the recommendation that she add some cognitive behavioral therapy to her treatment plan.
Yes.
And at that point on November 29th, were you aware of whether she had met with the social worker at the clinic?
She had not.
So did you have any indication that she had been engaging in some sort of cognitive behavioral or psychotherapy?
No.
Now, in relation to the medication piece of this follow-up, did you have any conversations with her about the concerns with the Remeron and what to do about that?
To work. Time. I also made additional recommendations as well.
Okay, and so what were the recommendations for? Did she express to you
that?
And when she used the term rebound anxiety, was that her terminology?
Yes, it was.
And is that a terminology that you generally use in psychiatric care to describe that, what you just told us about?
Yeah, it's a clinical term.
And was that something that she mentioned first, or did you mention?
I put it in quotes in my notes, so that's usually when a patient mentions it, I put it in quotes.
Okay. And so as far as the plan to address the sleep and to help her with this complaint, with Ambien not a choice, what was your next recommendation?
I discussed hydroxyzine because it's an as-needed medication for anxiety, but it's not a benzodiazepine, doesn't really carry that risk of rebound anxiety or tolerance or dependence, and it could help her sleep. So I offered that as an alternative as well.
Were you aware that she was offered hydroxyzine before?
I was not aware of that.
Was she willing to try the hydroxyzine?
No.
And so what was her preference?
Her preference was to continue with the mirtazapine, the Remeron 15 milligrams, and with the as-needed lorazepam.
And just so we kind of stay with the same terminology, when you're talking lorazepam.
Sorry, Ativan? Yeah.
Okay. And that was something that she expressed to you?
Yes.
Now, when you're dealing with a patient, and obviously this is your first interaction with her, right? Mm-hmm. Do you take into account your contact and communication with them in assessing whether they have the ability to make these choices or make informed decisions?
Absolutely.
And so your conversation with her about her medication treatment that she had received and what you were proposing as a plan, was she able to engage with you in that conversation?
Yep.
And so when
it was collaborative.
And so when she declined the options that you first offered, did you then present her with alternatives?
I did.
And ultimately, at the end of the day, whose choice is it as to what medication regimen person would be on?
The patient.
And why is that?
Because they have autonomy in their decisions. I'm only making recommendations based on my education, experience, training, what I'm seeing in terms of symptoms. The patient has the autonomy.
Are there instances where you're dealing with a patient where you have concerns that they shouldn't have autonomy? Or that, maybe if I rephrase that question, are there instances where you're dealing with a patient where you're concerned that they don't have the ability to make the right choice for themselves?
There would be, yeah.
And what options do you have in those instances?
In those instances, I mean, that sort of comes down to like competency, capacity to make decisions. Sometimes we might get our legal or ethics team involved to make a determination about whether this patient needs like a healthcare proxy to make their decisions, things like that.
And what about if a person presents with a very serious risk to their own physical health or the health of others? What are your options then?
I guess it would depend, if they had capacity to make their decisions.
In your interaction with her on November 29th, did you also go through with her and perform a mental screening test or a mental status screening?
I did.
And why do you do that?
It gives me some objective data of how the patient presents, how is their speech, how's their appearance, what is their thought process, what's their thought content, things of that nature.
And in this meeting on November 29th of 2022, did you observe anything in which she displayed manic symptoms?
No.
And what traditionally are manic symptoms that you look for?
So there's a new mnemonic called DIGFAST. Try to do this quick. D is distractibility. Patient is highly distracted to lots of extraneous stimuli. There is pressured speech, grandiosity. So suddenly someone's like, I'm going to run for office. I'm going to be the president. And you're like, okay, you've never had an interest in that before. Sleep is really poor. So somebody might get 2 hours of sleep, but be like, go, 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 go. Increased goal-directed activity. So somebody might be painting the exterior of their house, painting the interior of their house. They might be, doing a bunch of different projects with no like decompression time or feeling tired. Those are the general symptoms of mania. Sometimes there can be psychosis associated with it as well.
Okay, and so when you say mania and psychosis, are those two different things?
Yes.
And so are you also looking in these screenings to identify signs of psychosis?
Absolutely.
And what would be signs of psychosis usually?
Signs of psychosis, they can be sort of subtle. It might look like somebody's like responding to, stimuli in their head, like based on the way that their eyes are kind of tracking and they're not really paying attention. They may be quite guarded. They may have a delusional thought process. Like, for example, they might think that like somebody's out to get them, when there's really no like basis.
When you say responding to internal stimuli, is that generally when a person hears things, auditory hallucinations,
Yes.
or sees things that aren't there,
Correct.
visual hallucinations?
Mm-hmm.
And in addition to kind of watching for these things in your interaction, do you flat out ask somebody if they're experiencing those symptoms?
I do.
And in this first interaction that you had with Lindsay Clancy on 11/29, did she display any psychotic symptoms?
No.
What about assessing for suicidality? Do you do that as
I do.
well?
Mm-hmm.
And what do you do for that?
I generally ask, are you having any thoughts of wanting to hurt yourself or anybody else? And if the answer is yes, it sort of becomes a more in-depth assessment.
Do you go back and ask them about past thoughts?
Yes.
Whether they've articulated that?
Mm-hmm.
And in this case with Ms. Clancy, did she ever indicate whether she had a history of having suicidal thoughts or suicidal ideation?
She did not.
And how about homicidal ideation? Do you ask about that?
I do.
And in this instance, did she indicate whether she had any homicidal ideation or thoughts of harming other people?
No.
And as far as your observations of her presentation, like her mood and physically how she presented, did anything stand out to you as far as any of that?
She seemed anxious.
Okay.
Can I remember?
Okay, so as far as mood.
So I couldn't hear that.
Sorry, if you can finish your answer.
Sure. You done with that?
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay. All right.
So as far as mood, you noted her to be anxious, right?
Yes.
And you also look at a person's affect.
Mm-hmm.
And
You're gonna have to answer yes or no.
Yes. Sorry.
You observed her affect to be consistent with her mood, which you identified as anxious, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you examined somebody
Yes.
for their
Sorry.
that's okay thought process, right?
Right.
And what did you observe her thought process to be?
I observed her thought process to be linear, meaning you could follow it, her train of thought easily, and goal directed. She understood that she was there to be assessed for treatment. Seemed to be her goal.
And do you also perform other screenings like the generalized anxiety depression scale and the Edinburgh scale?
I do.
And did you do that for Lindsay Clancy on November 29th?
I did.
And what were the results of those screens?
Her Edinburgh, so the Edinburgh scale is out of 30. She was 17.
What does that mean?
Moderate to severe symptoms, postpartum depression.
Now, with that particular screening tool that you can use, is it fair to say that with postpartum women, it often fluctuates?
It can. The patient is asked about the previous 7 days.
And as far as the generalized anxiety depression scale, what were the results of that screen?
May I look? 14 out of a total of 21.
And so what does that mean?
That would mean moderately severe anxiety.
And do you recall about how much or how long your interaction with her was on this telehealth visit?
It would have been 30 minutes.
And as a result of your interaction with her, did you come up with a plan moving forward as to what to do to address her issues or her concerns?
Yes.
What was the plan?
Continue Remeron 15 milligrams nightly, Ativan as needed. Those medications had been prescribed to her already. I did not write her any prescriptions at that visit.
And again, you indicated that you kind of encouraged her to stick with the Remeron and give it a chance to work.
Yes.
Was she receptive to doing that?
Yes.
And as far as, again, the sleep issue, based on your conversation with her and her request to continue with the Ativan, that's what you recommended?
Yes.
Did you also recommend other types of treatment that were not pharmacological?
Yes.
And what were those?
I recommended therapy, mindfulness, physical activity, meditation.
And you're aware that in the past she had reported physical activity was something that had been helpful to her?
Yes, I believe with her postpartum period with Dawson, her middle child, she had some anxiety, but it seemed to resolve with exercise in particular.
And fair to say, as it pertains to that experience, her postpartum with Dawson, she had reported at some point to the clinic that she had sought medication after having Dawson and that she didn't end up taking that medication, right?
Correct.
Now, after this particular follow-up, what's your practice when you're dealing with a patient to have them have an intervention if they need to get in touch with you or they have concerns before your next scheduled meeting?
I generally advise for non-emergencies, you can message me on the Epic portal.
Is that generally referred to as My Chart?
My Chart, yeah.
And so My Chart, you could kind of go back and forth with messages, right?
Yes.
Did you encourage Lindsay to utilize My Chart if she felt the need to reach out to you before your next scheduled appointment?
Yes.
And at that.
Thanks, everyone.
See you next week.
Okay, Click Up. What did I just agree to in that meeting?
That's better.
Wait, that's done already?
My team works in Click Up.
You've got a great idea. GoDaddy has the perfect domain name to go with it. It only takes a few minutes to register one with over 500 extensions to choose from. Plus, every domain comes with the AI-powered experience, Aero, which will create essentials like a logo and landing page for you in minutes. With 80 million names sold, GoDaddy is the world's #1 domain registrar. Take your idea online today.
When Lindsay messaged you, that was at 11 a.m. That was the first message, correct?
I would have to look at the note for the time.
Okay. Do you have those?
I do have the messages. I believe that'd be accurate. It was 11 a.m. Yep.
And did she ask you something specific in that message?
She did.
What did she ask you?
She asked me if it would be safe to stop taking Remeron after 5 nights.
So you had just met with her on November 29th.
Correct.
And talked about stopping Remeron or talked about the concerns with Remeron.
We talked about continuing it on the 29th, yes.
But as far as the starting of that meeting where you were talking with her about the medication, she had already reported concerns with that medication, right?
Yes.
And so you encouraged her to stick with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next day, she's asking to stop again.
Yes.
Okay. Do you recall that in that message, she indicated that in the course of that night that she felt like the depression was much, much worse and not helping her sleep, and that she only got 2 hours?
Yes.
And she asked for a phone call from you, right?
Yes.
And did you call her back or did you message her back?
I messaged her back, but I also believe I had my nurse call her back because I was in between patients.
Okay. And so when you messaged her back, what did you ask her about to address that concern about stopping the Remeron after 5 nights?
I asked her what symptoms of depression did she notice was worsening.
And why did you do that?
Because she had mentioned that she felt that she was more depressed. She was attributing it to the medication.
But in her original message, did she give you any detail about what was worse?
Yeah, no, she did not. Sorry.
Is it important to you to know what symptoms are worse so that you know how to advise the patient?
Absolutely.
And did you again express to her a concern with stopping that particular medication after the short period of time she had been on it?
Yes, I shared with her that from what I understood, there had been really short medication trials since October, a short course of the Zoloft, a short course of Trazodone, and now what would be a short course of the Remeron. And I reiterated that sometimes it can take 4 to 6 weeks before these treatments start to work.
Okay. And you also knew from Julie Paul that she had only taken Prozac for approximately 4 days.
Correct.
So even though you gave her that information and encouraged her to stay with it, did you suggest an alternative?
I did.
And why did you suggest an alternative?
At this point, I'm trying to establish a therapeutic relationship with her as a patient. So I had met with her on the 29th. She's concerned about the mirtazapine. I'm kind of asking her to hang with me on it and give it a chance. But then the next day she's asking me again that she really doesn't like it. So at this point, I'm trying to kind of give her an alternative to establish a collaborative therapeutic relationship.
And at the end of the day, if you prescribe a medication and the patient doesn't want to take it, you don't know if they're going to take it, right?
Exactly.
So what was the alternative you suggested?
I had suggested Prozac again, just because I had known that she had taken it in like 2012 whenever she was in nursing school, and she was able to take it for a year, and she tolerated it okay. So I was kind of thinking maybe we can try to get you to retrial it, and it would be helpful.
And in making that recommendation to potentially restart it, had you reviewed the notes from Julie Paul in which the defendant, or Lindsay Clancy, indicated that when she took the Prozac, she felt disconnected? And now, Seroquel, is that a drug that you're familiar with?
I am.
And in your practice, especially dealing with women's health, perinatal issues, what would a low dose of Seroquel accomplish for a woman postpartum?
To get them to sleep.
And you are aware that Seroquel at higher doses could be used to treat other types of mental illnesses?
Yes.
But in this circumstance and with this recommendation, what was the purpose of the Seroquel?
So at this stage, my awareness was that she had tried a first-line option, which would be the benzodiazepine. The second-line options are usually what we call the sedating antidepressants, like Trazodone, Remeron. So this would be more like a third-line option to try.
And is that because Trazodone, she reported, didn't help her?
Didn't help.
And she didn't like the feeling on Remeron?
Right.
And so ultimately in that message, you kind of reiterated what your overall recommendations were, right?
Yes.
And it was to continue with the Remeron for another 10 days, and that the alternative would be to restart Prozac and add the 25 milligrams of Seroquel nightly for anxiety and insomnia. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so were you recommending that she be on all of those at the same time? That she do the Remeron, the Seroquel, the Prozac?
Yes.
And in your experience in psychiatric care and prescribing medication, is it a common practice to pair low doses or doses of particular types of medications together to effectively manage a person's symptoms?
Mm-hmm. At this clinical juncture, my thought was the combination of Remeron with the Prozac to treat the depression with prominent anxiety, the Seroquel to help alleviate the sleep.
And you're also addressing the concern of benzodiazepine dependency, right?
Correct.
Did you encourage her to do something to help you to kind of manage her treatment track going forward?
Yes.
What did you encourage her to do?
I had noticed that Lindsay was attributing a lot of her symptoms to her medication. And so I attached to the MyChart message 2 different mood charts. And what those one is daily, one is weekly. What it is it asks the patient each day to rate their mood from like 0 to 3. Good mood, bad mood, normal mood. It asks about like, did you take your medications? What doses? What were they? Check the box. How many hours a night did you sleep? What's your anxiety level? What's irritability? And what I wanted from that was, because it had all those parameters about mood and then also the medication, did you take it? We'd be able to track over time what the progression was. Was it getting worse since we started the medication? Was it actually getting better? I just wanted more data.
And were you aware that she was actually tracking those things herself?
No.
Now, you continued to have some back and forth messages with her throughout the course of the day on November 30th, correct?
Correct.
So we have, she reached out to you at 11. Mm-hmm. You responded to her at 11:52.
Yes.
There's another message from her at 12:15, right?
Yes.
And just going back for a second, when you were asking her about worsening symptoms, did you ask specifically about suicidal symptoms?
I did.
And why those, if she was expressing some depression and sleep issues?
Suicidal thoughts can be a symptom of depression, and I just wanted to make sure I assessed that one because of its severity.
And is that something that's important to do before you make a recommendation to change a medication?
Yes.
Now, when she responded at 12:15, did she tell you anything about the suicidal thoughts, or if she was having any?
She said she's not at the point of being suicidal.
Okay. She also indicated, but I'm really feeling as if I can't go on like this, right?
Right.
And she asked you to call in the Seroquel.
She did ask me to call in the Seroquel, yes.
So based on her response, did you feel that she was taking the alternative that you were offering?
Yes.
And then at 12:29 p.m., you get another message from her where she asks for a phone call, right?
Yes.
And again, at that point, did you have a phone call with her, or did you continue to interact with her on the MyChart portal?
I interacted with her on the MyChart between patients, and I had my nurse give her a call.
And again, you said in between patients. So did you have the opportunity to pick up the phone and call?
I did not.
Okay. And is that one of the benefits of the messaging portal, that you can get back to somebody quicker?
Yes.
So when, before you were able to respond, did she send you some additional messages on MyChart, if you remember? Or if you could look at your notes.
Okay. I see that the symptoms of depression that she reported.
Yeah, so just drawing your attention to 12:58 p.m.
Yes.
You get another message from her where she says, the symptoms of depression that are much worse are just feeling completely hopeless and unmotivated to do anything at all. And that she says, I printed the daily mood chart and we'll start it. Now, you said that you did ask your nurse to give her a phone call at some point, and so you're aware that a nurse did call her on November 30th at approximately 3:10 p.m.
Yes.
And that during that phone call that Lindsay agreed to the plan and that she was going to pick up the Seroquel.
Yes.
Now, at that point, you had another meeting scheduled with her for a week out, right? But
Yes.
prior to that, did you also continue to communicate with her via MyChart?
Yes.
So moving into December 1st, again, were you able to send her a message?
She sent me a message on December 1st, and I did reply to it.
Okay, so December 1st at 12:20 p.m., we have a message from Lindsay Clancy. Hi, Rebecca. I really don't like the way I feel on the Remeron, and I know that I can't stick with it, or I can't stick with taking it. I started having very intrusive thoughts that I never had before. I didn't take it last night. I would really like to go back to Julie's original plan of Prozac in the morning and using Ativan and Benadryl at night as a Band-Aid until I get to a therapeutic level of Prozac. Please let me know if you agree with this plan. I know that I need to give it a good couple of weeks to work. Is that the message that you first received on December 1st?
It was.
And were you aware that that same day that Lindsay had reached out to her primary care physician asking for an immediate appointment with her nurse practitioner?
I was.
And that she was looking to discuss medications?
Yes.
So you're able to review the notes from the network of South Shore Health, right?
Correct, yes.
So you were able to review that she asked for an emergency appointment. They were able to find her an emergency appointment, but she didn't get back in enough time to actually get there.
Correct.
Okay. And so in the meantime, you're having a back and forth with her during the course of that day, December 1st.
Yes.
When she indicated to you in this message on December 1st about having intrusive thoughts and not liking the Remeron and not taking it, what was your response?
I sent her a detailed message of signs and symptoms of postpartum depression and anxiety, including factors like onset, risk factors, predictors, common symptoms, and it highlighted how intrusive thoughts are quite common in postpartum depression and anxiety, and I asked her, I'm wondering if that's what's going on here. I then asked her if she was able to take the Seroquel that night and if she noticed any improvement in terms of sleep or anxiety with the Seroquel.
Now, by giving her this information about postpartum depression and postpartum anxiety, was that consistent with a diagnosis that either you or Julie had given her in coming into the clinic?
Yes. We were thinking this could be some postpartum anxiety. And I wanted to familiarize her with the symptoms so that she had them written down and she could report them to me and understand that they are part of these disorders.
Okay. And you also gave her some information about obsessions and compulsions, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you said you asked her about the Seroquel and asked about sleep, right?
Yes. And
did you also reiterate that you were still encouraging to keep up with the Remeron for a period of time?
Yes.
And you further indicated to her that you wanted to kind of see if there was a correlation between the symptoms and the medication and that you just didn't have enough data.
Right.
In response to that message, she actually responded at 2:36 on December 1st, correct?
Yes.
And she indicated, thank you for the information. It was helpful. That she says, I panicked last night and just took Ativan and Benadryl, but tonight I'll stick with the plan and try the 15 of Remeron and the 25 of Seroquel. Do you recall if you had ever had a conversation with her about kind of using Ativan and Benadryl as a backup, or if she just felt like she wasn't getting any relief?
I recall having a conversation about using the Ativan as a backup. I believe it was, yes, in my initial, I said continue the Remeron and the Ativan as needed.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about the Benadryl?
The Benadryl I don't recall discussing.
But you were aware that she had reported the combination of Ativan and Benadryl had worked for her before.
Right.
And in that message, she also says, I'm sorry for all the messages. It's just a scary, very scary, stressful time for me. And starting new meds with side effects is very scary to me. I'll check in the morning and let you know how it went, right?
Right.
Okay. And again, you continued to have some contact with her on that same day after that.
I believe I responded to that, reassuring her that it's understandable to have fears, concerns about starting medications, and I sent her a detailed description of common question and answers I get from patients about medications, things like what to expect, how long does it take to work, what are common side effects, risks for, is there any risk for suicide, homicide with medications,
So in providing all this information with her, what were you trying to do?
Provide information because she had said it was so scary starting medication, so I wanted her to be equipped with understanding and what to expect possibly.
And based on your interactions with her and your review of Julie Paul's interactions with her, this was a person that was very receptive to taking information, right?
Yes.
And as her role as a nurse, she was not afraid to ask questions. Is that fair to say?
No. Yes, she was not afraid.
And one of the things that you provided her, or the information you provided her in this detailed response back to her on December 1st at 3:04, was that there are other sources or resources that she could utilize that are available at the clinic, right?
Yes.
And
go ahead.
These two books, Exhibit 148.
Yep.
Good Moms Have Scary Thoughts, and this one, The Pregnancy Postpartum Anxiety Workbook.
Yes.
To you?
Yes, I instructed her that we had copies of these books that we were giving out to patients and that she should come grab them when she was in clinic. And she informed me she would be seeing Letitia the next day for counseling, so she would grab them when she was there.
Okay. And so that day, December 1st, fair to say you went back and forth with her from about 12:30 to her last message, she was at 4:37 that day.
Yes.
And you said that she indicated that she did have an appointment the next day with Letitia Dukes.
Yes.
And were you aware of whether that was an in-person meeting?
Yes, it was in person because she said, I'll be in clinic, I'll be able to get those resources.
Okay. So moving to December 2nd, you didn't have a scheduled appointment with her, correct?
I did not.
And you knew she was going to see Letitia that morning in clinic, right?
Correct.
And you received several messages from her that morning.
I did.
Again, through the MyChart portal?
Yes.
Beginning at 7:51 a.m., where she sends you a message saying, "Hi, Rebecca. I took the 15 Remeron and 25 Seroquel. I woke up at 12 with horribly intrusive thoughts of wanting it to be all over. I took 1 milligram Ativan and went back to sleep, and the thoughts went away. Now that I have the Ativan on board, I really need to explore the option that I'm addicted to Ativan. I have a therapy appointment with Letitia in your office. I would really like to speak with someone in the substance use clinic to explore the option." Do you recall getting that message?
I do.
Okay. And did you respond to that message?
I did. I am credentialed at Cellshare Health and Addiction Medicine, so I felt that I could be that person to discuss those concerns with her.
Discuss the substance use concerns?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and you're aware that the social workers can also screen for those as well?
Yes.
So at 8:51 on December 2nd, you respond to her, right?
I did.
And what do you tell her about the concerns she just expressed in her 7:51 message?
I fully appreciate and understand the concern for benzo tolerance. It's not something I want to happen to my patients ever. That being said, there's a place for benzodiazepines, especially at the beginning and acute phase of treatment and getting someone stable. And then we would always pull back slowly. I think another thing to try tonight would be to take 50 milligrams of Seroquel, the 2 tablets, and see if that works better. The intrusive thoughts are part of postpartum depression, anxiety, very painful to think and experience, but I want to reassure you that it's not uncommon and mean nothing about who you are as a mother. Let me know what you think.
And so the recommendation from 25 to 50 milligrams of Seroquel, is that still within the range for treatment for insomnia?
Yes.
So would you characterize that as a low dose, a high dose?
A low dose.
And as far as her statement about intrusive thoughts, fair to say your response doesn't ask her more specifics about those thoughts, right?
No.
But you reiterate to her, just as you had in the lengthy messages where you provided information, that intrusive thoughts are pretty common.
Correct.
Now, did she respond to that message?
She did.
And so at 9:04 on December 2nd, there's a response from Lindsay Clancy. I'm willing to try anything. I just keep coming back to the feeling that I'm dependent on Ativan after my 2.5 weeks of taking it daily with Benadryl, following the bad reaction to Zoloft. I feel addicted to it, and I feel like I'm not being heard, that is a possibility. I feel like we are throwing all these different meds at my insomnia when the root cause is Ativan dependence. I don't feel any of the anxious thoughts I had before. I feel completely numb. So you got that message from her at 9:04, correct?
I did.
And what was your concern when you got that message, or did you have any concern?
I wouldn't say I had concern. I just wanted to, again, provide her some information about what I thought might be happening.
Based on your training and experience as a psychiatric nurse.
I'm sorry, she didn't finish her answer, please.
Okay, yep. Go ahead.
I was finished.
Okay, well, she's finished. All right, next question.
Based on your training and experience as a psychiatric nurse, and you said you had some experience with substance use, did you feel that there was a dependency issue or an addiction issue with Ativan?
I did not.
Is it fairly common that Ativan is going to make somebody feel better if they're feeling anxious?
Yes.
That's why you take it, right?
Yes.
And that's why you take it as needed. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
So, in your response to her at 9:37, do you make clear to her the difference between dependence and addiction?
I do.
Okay. And as far as benzodiazepines go, there is a real concern for dependence and addiction in the fields. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
But based on taking it for 2.5 weeks, taking it to address actual symptoms of anxiety, did you have a concern of dependence?
No.
And so did you articulate to her that anything about that concept of dependence versus addiction? What did you say?
I said, I wonder if you fear you're becoming dependent on the benzodiazepines, and there's a subtle difference between dependence and addiction. With addiction, there's a change in behavior caused by biochemical changes in the brain after continued substance abuse. The substance use becomes the main priority of the person with the substance use disorder, regardless of the harm it causes to themselves or others. With dependence, we're referring to physical dependence on a substance characterized by symptoms of tolerance. Characterized by symptoms of tolerance and withdrawal. Benzodiazepine withdrawal is similar to alcohol withdrawal symptoms. We would be seeing things like elevated vital signs, high blood pressure, tachycardia, diaphoresis, mild alteration of mental status, initially with a possibility of perceptual disturbances, delirium, dysphoria, and tremors. Did the insomnia predate the Ativan use? I hear your concerns about the benzos. So my recommendation is do not take them every night. I recommend taking only every other night, and then we will not refill it.
And so what's diaphoresis?
Sweating.
Okay. And in the field of prescribing psychiatric medications, do you often have to deal with physical dependency and then addressing it later?
I wouldn't say often.
Is there a way to address that
Absolutely, yeah.
And so that wasn't a concern of yours regarding Ativan, was it?
Not at that time.
And what about her statement about not being heard? Did you see that in her message? Where she says, I feel like I'm not being heard about addiction.
Could that being a possibility?
As a psychiatric nurse practitioner dealing in psychiatric medicine, is it important to you when a patient tells you that I don't feel I'm heard?
Yes.
And do you take that in consideration when addressing them and continuing to build that relationship?
Yes.
And so in this case with the defendant, with Lindsay Clancy, did that change your approach with her at all?
It's why I sent the message that I did, trying to explain what addiction versus dependence intolerance is. And I wanted to reassure her that we will try to have you take these less frequently and we don't need to continue them moving forward.
So she advocated for herself and you took that into consideration and created an alternative plan or suggested an alternative plan?
Yes.
Did your care of her change at all when she told you she wasn't being heard?
I wouldn't say it changed.
You treated her as you would any other patient, right?
Correct.
Now, you continued to have messages with her throughout that day. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And so at 10:02, you receive a message from her. It says, the insomnia started from the Zoloft, but then after the 2 weeks of daily Ativan and Benadryl use, that's when the insomnia was at its worst. I've tried so many different sleeping aids at this point, Trazodone, Ambien, Remeron, Seroquel, and they all seem to barely touch the sleep until I take Ativan with them. So tonight I will try 15 of Remeron with 50 of Seroquel. I fear that if I wake up in the middle of the night with intrusive thoughts again, I will feel like I need Ativan. Do you recall her sending that message at 10:02?
I do.
And that she sent another message, it's kind of cut off, but it's still within the 10 o'clock hour, where she adds, I also just feel concerningly numb right now, like I have no emotion whatsoever. I feel like I'm going to die and I don't care. What do I do about this?
I do recall that message, yes.
And this is a message that she sent when she would have been or have seen Letitia Dukes already, right? If she had a 9 o'clock appointment?
Yes.
When she sent that message to you, did you respond back to her at 11:35?
I did.
And with the fact that she talked about being numb and having no emotions, feel like I'm going to die and don't care, what did you do?
I said, this sounds like depression and anhedonia symptoms. I would say if you're feeling unsafe, particularly as we head into the weekend, it is important for you to have information for psych emergency services available to you. And I provided a list of the 24-hour emergency service programs like mobile crisis intervention.
Okay. And when you say anhedonia, excuse me if I mispronounced that, what does that mean?
Anhedonia is a symptom of depression where people are unable to feel pleasure. They might describe it as feeling numb. They're unable to look forward to things.
Okay. And in her message where she says, I feel like I'm going to die and I don't care, did you take that as a suicidal thought or suicidal ideation?
No.
And so did you tell her to go to the ER right away?
No.
Okay. Did you have concerns that she needed to get a higher level of care at that moment when she sent that message?
My concern about that statement was that I wanted her to have access to resources if it escalated or if it worsened. So I made sure she had it.
Okay. And Fair to say you also, at the end of that message, indicate, are you able to get rest or reach out to your support system so that you can be helpful, so they can be helpful to you right now, and that this is hugely important.
I did say that, yes.
And 11:41 a.m., she responds, yes, I have support. My parents are here to help. And again, this is 12:02. Does this sound like side effects to Remeron or Seroquel? I have never felt anything like this before. And then 11:57, she sends another message. Do you think over time these symptoms will go away over time? 12:04, another message from her. Is there any chance you could give me a call to discuss when you have a minute? At 12:10 p.m., and just to confirm, your recommendation for tonight is 15 Remeron, 50 Seroquel, and avoid Ativan, even if I'm not sleeping. So you got those messages in succession, right?
I did.
And were you able to eventually respond to her with a phone call?
I responded to the message at 12:12 p.m. I wrote it down for her.
And again, in your response to her, did you reiterate that these are pretty common signs of depression, and that what she was expressing to you wasn't uncommon in women with postpartum depression?
Correct. I said it sounds more like depression than side effects. It's not uncommon for me to hear, I've never felt anything like this before, or I just don't feel like myself. All of this sounds like postpartum depression.
And did you further try to give her some encouraging words?
I shared a passage from a book called This Isn't What I Expected.
And is that book kind of centered around postpartum depression?
Yes.
And did you also tell her this is going to get better?
I said, even though they feel terrible, remember that they're symptoms of an illness that is very real and very treatable. This is going to get better.
And after that message on 12:12, did you in fact send her another message?
I did.
And fair to say that next message was to kind of address the concern about her question, what to take.
Yes.
And you confirmed to take 15 milligrams Remeron, 10 milligrams Prozac, and 50 milligrams Seroquel.
Yes.
And that taking Ativan every other day might help.
I said, I would say taking Ativan every other day might help you to see you are not addicted, as one cannot be addicted to something they don't take every day, but we can also decide to let me be concerned about whether you have a problem with the Ativan and simply take it nightly for now. And if I have concerns about your use of it, I will make them apparent to you. My primary concern at this time is that you sleep, and if that means taking the Ativan for middle of the night wake-ups, that is what it means. I'm confident we can safely and successfully get you off Ativan in the near future. And then I also go on to make recommendations about if she does have trouble in the middle of the night, certain sleep hygiene techniques that she could do, like getting out of bed, and doing something non-stimulating, and then go back down to try to sleep again when you feel drowsy.
So an alternative as to medication intervention.
Yeah.
And then at 1:40 p.m., she responds, thank you. I'll stick with that plan. I really hope it works and to feel like myself soon. Right?
Yes.
And then at 2:35, you respond, we will follow you closely. We have lots of alternatives. If this for some reason isn't the combination, we'll find one that gets you back to feeling like yourself.
I did say that, yes.
In all your treatment of women, the women that you've treated with postpartum depression, is this common that you have to kind of trial different plans in order to find the right one?
Yes.
All right, Ms. Buckhead, it's 11 o'clock. Why don't we take the morning recess at this time? All right?
Thank you.
So we'll take the break.
Thank you.
Court, all rise. Good.